Okay, everybody, welcome to Success After Service. My name is Chris Hale, CEO of GI Jobs, and we are so blessed to have with us today Michelle Isenhour, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel who has joined us here, who's now working at Johnson & Johnson. Michelle, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the welcome.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, just give us a synopsis of your background and what you did prior to going to West Point and what drew you to West Point.
Okay. All right. I was born and raised in Jackson, Michigan. I spent the first 17 years of my life there before leaving and heading to West Point. I joined the United States Corps of Cadets in July of 1990. Graduated from West Point in 1994 as a Signal Corps officer, doing voice data and information services around the battlefield for various commanders. Spent 26 years in the Army. My military time was kind of split. Half of it was in the operational Army doing the warfighting job, and the other half was in academia. I was fortunate enough while in the service to earn a master's degree in applied math and a PhD in computational science and informatics. So as a result of having those two assignments, I spent 5 years teaching at West Point as a mathematics professor, and then an additional 3 years teaching out at the Naval Postgraduate School, teaching statistics and data analysis for the Operations Research Department. So had some very good times on the operational side as well. Spent time at Fort Hood, Texas, and then Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and Fort Riley, Kansas, primarily were my three big assignments with the 3rd Corps, the 18th Airborne Corps, and then with the 1st Infantry Division in Fort Riley.
Yeah, no, really good stuff. Interesting background, and 26 years on active duty. Is that right? And you retired in 2020.
That's correct.
So you went to work for Johnson & Johnson. Pandemic was in full throat, I think, right at the time. And what kind of led you to J&J?
Yeah. So the J&J journey actually began about 13 to 15 months prior to September of 2020. Actually 13 to 15 months prior to my exit from the Army in May of 2020. Really wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I got out. I had, a pretty robust academic CV, lots of publications, lots of conference presentations, time in the classroom at both the undergraduate and postgraduate level. The natural transition probably would have been to go to academia and look for a fast-tracked, tenured professor type job at a local university. I was really looking for something in the Nashville, Tennessee area, which would be close to our home. But the best thing I think I did was, I started to look around to see what was available. I was looking at, how to write resumes, how to start this journey. And I was fortunate enough that the Navy does something called the Rule-In Seminar. They have the Rule-In company come in and provide this seminar that teaches you the skills you need, teaches you a 30-second commercial to answer the question, what do you want to do when you get out of the military? They teach you a 2-minute kind of summary of what you do in the military and how to explain what you do in civilian terms. And then, just being able to do things like, dressing up when you go to the airport and talking to people, because that's how sometimes jobs happen. But anyway, I finished this week of prep, working on my answering interview questions and working on this 30-second commercial. And I had an opportunity that week. The CEO for Johnson & Johnson was coming out to the Naval Postgraduate School. He spoke to the student body during the day, and then he was the guest speaker at the West Point Founders Day dinner that evening in Monterey.
Hmm.
And as he was doing his fireside chat during that Founders Day dinner, he was talking about one of the things he does to give back to veterans is, help them understand how do you translate the things you do in the military into the proper jargon to be understood by corporate America. And he loves to help people do that, whether it's for J&J or for any other corporation. He feels that, the leadership skills that, well, I believe that, what he stated that night was that he feels like the leadership skills in the military are valuable to corporate America, and it's not used enough. And so just listening to a talk, I was so impressed and so inspired. And oh, by the way, I wanted to figure out how to translate my skills as well. So I walked up, introduced myself afterwards, did my 30-second commercial, and we exchanged email addresses, and he hooked me up with a mentor that was going to help me, do exactly that, translate my skills into something that's valuable for corporate America. And I worked, for almost a full year with that mentor, talking about different things, different opportunities, how to read job descriptions, how to respond to job offers or job postings, those types of things, and just essentially how to get your foot in the door, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I wanted to ask you too, was that CEO, was that Alex Gorski?
It was, yes, it was. It was
Who's a,
Alex was a West Point grad, and so he was our Founders Day dinner speaker that year.
yeah, no, that's very cool. That's very cool. So yeah, I mean, that's a great opportunity, right? To meet the CEO of the company that comes from the same school and kind of network your way in there. And tell us about, so the job that you've got now with J&J, tell us what that job title is, and then explain that what you do on a daily basis, because it's a mouthful.
Yeah, so I am the Director of Integrated Risk Management for Information Security and Risk Management at Johnson & Johnson. So what you can think about is, taking information technology and cybersecurity risk and helping to translate it into business risk so that it's understood by uh, the business side of Johnson & Johnson, and people who maybe don't quite understand the importance of information security. Well, they understand the importance of information security and cybersecurity, but don't understand the effect that, the small actions that you need to do day to day and how they impact the larger picture. And so essentially my job is to take information technology risks such as patching of servers and databases and things like that, and help explain why that is an important process that's in place, an important control, and essentially just helping them understand what the current landscape is and risk to Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. And so on a day-to-day basis, part of your job, are you doing a lot of quantitative stuff, the academia stuff that you did, or is it communicating to different business units at J&J? Talk to us about
Yeah,
that mix.
yeah, it's interesting because it's a nice mix of my background. So it is a lot of data analysis. A lot of the math background, the computational science background gets used every particular day as we're looking at different data sets and different ways to present the data and things like that. And then the other part of it is then, the bringing together teams, getting people to all work together, trying to communicate why things are important, communicating strategy, those types of things. So there's a lot of that. And then, just the leadership and, trying to prioritize and juggling, all of the things that are going on and trying to come up with what's most important that we should work on and in what order. The military was really good at, throwing a ton of things at you and teaching you how to juggle them. And I feel like that's a day-to-day activity at Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Let me ask you this. So you are currently on site at corporate headquarters, is that right?
No, in the IT building in Riverton.
Okay, so in one of the J&J facilities. And then do you work from out of your home at times as well? Is that right?
Yes, I do. I work mostly remote. out of my home.
Okay. Yeah, good. And then, so tell me about some of the differences that you've seen culturally between, working in the Army and working at Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah, the one thing that I think, and you asked for differences, but I'm going to tell you some of the similarities that I've seen. Johnson and Johnson has a credo, and I liken the credo to the Army values. The Army values are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And then J&J has a credo that commits us to, our customers and our stakeholders in our communities. And what I found about the people at Johnson and Johnson that work for me and around me is that their dedication to that credo is as dedicated as what I found in the Army by myself and the fellow soldiers. And so I think that's one of the things that led me to J&J was my interest in the credo and how much the credo aligned to the Army values that I was familiar to. Because at first I thought I wanted to work in a smaller type company, thousand employees max, and I blew that out of the water by jumping into Johnson and Johnson. But that's the thing that I find. I think if we talk about differences, the one thing that is different is in the military, I could pretty much direct things to happen and happen quickly, and they would. Here at Johnson and Johnson, I've learned just have to be a lot more patient. They still need you still give the direction. Just you have to then give them the time and the space to execute the task at hand. It will get done to the same quality and to the same standards. It's just not as fast because I think in the military there's a sense of urgency, because is a bigger, it, people's lives are on the line. There's just a lot of bigger consequences, I guess you could say. Whereas, here I'm able to say to the people, hey, end of the day, go home, enjoy time with your family. It'll all still be here tomorrow, and nothing bad will happen between now and tomorrow morning. In the military, that necessarily wasn't, you couldn't say that all the time. And so I that's the other thing that I've noticed, and is just to be patient and just give people the time and space to get things done.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. One of the things I recall in my transition personally was the value, money is a currency that corporate America uses and values, as is time, because time is money. In the military, not so much, right? We don't often even know the cost of the things from a monetary perspective that we're using, and we don't often value our time in terms of money either. And I found that to be one of the differences too. Do you see any differences there between your time in the Army and your time at J&J?
A little bit. I think, for me, time was always valuable, I think, because in an academic environment, there's always a set time frame as well. So I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of differences from that perspective as far as the value of time. But the quantification of it, yes. I mean, we are always trying to quantify the amount of time things takes here in this environment, which we didn't necessarily have to do. You created a training schedule, you held yourself to that training schedule in the military, and that's just kind of it, right? And here it's like, okay, how long are these things taking? Can we find a more innovative, automation driven way to do this that'll help us, not only save time, but then allow us to focus on other things that need to be done as well. So perhaps from that perspective, the military, we might do the same archaic process over and over and over again because that's what we're trained to do. Whereas J&J, we're being a little more innovative and trying to find ways to squeak out just that extra amount of time.
Yep. Michelle, are you involved in any groups at J&J, with regard to fellow veteran employees?
Yeah, so I am involved with the Veterans Leadership Council. It is an employee resource group. here at Johnson & Johnson. I serve as the executive sponsor for the Raritan chapter of the VLC, the Veterans Leadership Council. And we do different things. We hold quarterly meetings and we do different things. We participated in the Travis Manion Foundation Run. We participate and volunteer at horse stables and do just different events throughout the year. A lot of food and clothing drives where we see a need and things like that. But it's essentially a group of not only veterans at Johnson & Johnson, but veteran supporters at Johnson & Johnson. So we have some employees that join the employee research group, join the VLC because their son or daughter might be in the military, or they just have a real big affiliation or connection to the military and they want to do some good things. But it's open to anyone and everyone. But I serve as the executive sponsor for the Raritan chapter.
Nice. Congratulations on that. We had covered Alex's story in the past, I think, when he took over J&J. Alex Gorski, of course, the former CEO of J&J, and I know they had a very robust program, for recruiting from the military at the time. Can you speak to any of the, the appetite or any of the specific mechanisms that J&J uses to pursue prior service members as employees?
Yeah, I can tell you, as we look to hire veterans, we have many avenues. We have SkillBridge, we have hiring our heroes. The Military Veteran Leader Development Program was going on. I joined in the initial cohort of the Experienced Military Veteran Leader Development Program. The transition from Alex to team, there was nothing. There was no change. I mean, we are still have all of those programs in place that began, and we have the veteran sales pathway. I mean, there are tons of ways, and we're always looking for more ways to continue to hire veterans, let veterans know about opportunities at J&J. Some of the programs are very competitive. But we get out there, we share every veteran at J&J has networks, and we spend time during our work days talking to veterans and sharing our stories and encouraging them to apply at J&J.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would say for the viewers watching, that if you go to jnj.com and search careers or military, there's a ton of information out there on all of the different ways and opportunities for the military to join Johnson & Johnson.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up here, but I guess we would end with, do you have any transition advice? And I would say perhaps to retiring senior officers like yourself, but also two other categories that we track, retiring enlisted, junior enlisted getting out after one or two terms, and junior military officers that are getting out prior to retirement. Just what are some common themes that you might recommend in order to make that transition successfully?
Yeah, there's a bunch, and I think the big thing is to find a mentor. I think that was probably the best thing I did, was I had a mentor who would help me. If you are interested in a particular corporation or working at a particular place, find somebody LinkedIn has thousands of connections. Find somebody or get a friend to make an introduction to someone in that corporation. As you get on this side of it, you realize how many people get hired based on referrals. So if you have somebody that can make a referral to you and making those connections. One of the other things I learned at the seminar I attended was the importance of networking, and start networking early. 2 years out isn't too early. Start talking to people, start learning about yourself, and then start expanding your network and keeping in contact with people as you go through those final 18 months of your military career. But I think for me, the big one was the mentor, because a mentor can do so much as far as helping you understand not only the the process, but just the difficulties you might face once you land. And my mentor was instrumental for that. And so I'm going to give a quick shout out. She's the former CISO of J&J. Maureen Ellison was my mentor. West Point class of 1980, phenomenal leader and an awesome individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. Really great advice. Mentor and network, and it takes time, right? I mean, it's a job to get out and figure out how to get out of the military and transition successfully. So I think that's some underlying themes in your words too. So thank you so much, Michelle Isenhour, for joining us today. And to all the veterans viewing, best of luck to you in your search for a successful career transition into the private sector. Thanks for being with us today. Bye.